She was bleeding out in an alley, sold by the family she loved, when the city's most dangerous man made her an offer: die as a victim or rise as a queen. Before we dive into this emotional journey, if you're enjoying these stories of unexpected love and redemption, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change how you see the world. Now, let's begin. The rain tasted like copper and regret. Isla Monroe lay crumpled against the brick wall of an alley that smelled of rotting garbage and broken dreams, her vision swimming in and out of focus. Blood mixed with rainwater, pooling beneath her in a grotesque watercolor she'd never wanted to paint. 22 years old, and this was how her story ended, not with love or adventure, but here, discarded like trash in the industrial district where no one would hear her scream. Not that she could scream anymore. Her throat was too damaged for that. 3 hours ago, she'd been in her childhood home, the sprawling estate in Ashford Hills that had belonged to her father before he died, before her stepmother Victoria married into the family with her perfectly manicured nails and her daughter Celeste who wore Isla's clothes and slept in the bedroom Isla's mother had decorated. 3 hours ago, Isla had been planning her wedding to Julian Cross, the man who'd promised her forever with eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. Isla, darling, could you come downstairs? Julian's here with some friends. Victoria's voice had been honey-sweet. It always was when she wanted something. The living room had been full of men she didn't recognize. Large men with dead eyes and hands that looked like they'd broken things before. You told me she'd be compliant, one of the men said, his accent thick and Eastern European. She won't run, Victoria said, lighting a cigarette. She's too soft. Too trusting. Aren't you, Isla? Victoria, I don't understand. Your father's estate was supposed to come to me when he died. But the old fool put it in trust for you until you turned 25 or got married. I've been waiting 3 years, and frankly, darling, I'm tired of waiting. Isla's gaze snapped to Julian. Jules? Tell her this is a joke. It's not a joke, Isla. His voice was flat, bored. The wedding was never happening. I needed you to trust me long enough to get you alone. They've paid very good money for you. You're selling me? Oh, don't be dramatic. Celeste appeared from the kitchen, eating an apple. It's just business. Mother has debts, and you have value. Besides, Julian and I have been together for months. Did you really think he wanted you? She'd kissed him then, right in front of Isla. His hands had slid around Celeste's waist with a familiarity that spoke of countless secret encounters. Isla had run. She'd made it to the door before rough hands grabbed her. They'd hit her until she stopped fighting. Julian had watched it all, his expression mildly annoyed. The last thing she'd heard before they'd thrown her in the van was Victoria's voice. Make sure no one finds the body. But they hadn't killed her. Not right away. The men had argued about money that hadn't been fully transferred. In that chaos, Isla had run again. She'd made it 6 blocks before they'd caught her a second time. This time, they'd made sure she wouldn't run anymore. Now, lying in her own blood, Isla felt something inside her break that had nothing to do with her cracked ribs. It was deeper. The part of her that had believed in goodness, in love, it shattered like glass, and in its place, something cold and dark began to grow. The sound of expensive shoes on wet pavement cut through her fading consciousness. Through the rain, she saw him, a man in a black suit that probably cost more than her childhood home, his dark hair swept back from a face carved from marble. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with predatory grace. He stopped 3 feet away, studying her like she was a puzzle. You're dying, he said. His voice was deep, Italian accented. It held no sympathy, just observation. Isla tried to speak. Blood bubbled from her lips instead. Who did this? He asked. She managed one word. Family. Something flickered across his face. He crouched down, still not touching her. You have 2 choices, he said quietly. I can leave you here. You'll be dead in 10 minutes. Painless. Your suffering ends. Isla's vision blurred. Or, he continued, something dangerous entering his voice, you can let me take you. I'll fix your body. Teach you things. Dangerous things. And when you're strong enough, I'll help you destroy everyone who put you here. But that path is harder. More painful. You'll have to become something most people aren't capable of becoming. What would you choose if you were Isla? Peaceful death or painful rebirth? Drop your answer in the comments. He extended his hand and waited. Choose quickly. Death or transformation? Victim or villain? What will it be? Isla Monroe looked at that offered hand and felt the last piece of her old self die. She gripped his wrist with blood-slick fingers. Teach me, she whispered through broken teeth. Teach me how to make them scream. The man's lips curved. Good girl. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, carrying her toward a black SUV. Isla's consciousness flickered, but she held on long enough to hear him speak. Take us home, Marco. Call Dr. Castellano. Tell him to prep the medical wing. Boss, you sure about this? The rules about bringing in. Are you questioning me? The temperature dropped. The silence that followed was absolute. No, Mr. Valerian. Never. Valerian. Even through her pain, Isla knew that name. Dante Valerian, the Mafia King who ruled the criminal underworld with ruthlessness that made grown men check their locks twice. He owned half the legitimate businesses in the city and all of the illegitimate ones. Politicians answered his calls. Police looked the other way. And he'd just saved her life. Why? Darkness pulled her under before she could ask. 15 blocks north, Dante Valerian stood in his penthouse that occupied the entire top floor of Valerian Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that belonged to him. The decor was minimalist: marble, steel, glass. Beauty implied softness, and Dante had eliminated softness from his life 14 years ago. That was the year they'd killed his family and taken his sister. Mr. Valerian, the Kozlov deal is closed, Luca said, tablet in hand. Also, there's a situation in the East District. Traffickers dumped a body behind the Marchetti property. Female, early 20s, blonde. Severe trauma. Still breathing but barely. Dante's pen stopped moving. Blonde. Yes, sir. Age 20 to 25. Something cold slithered down his spine. Blonde hair. Early 20s. Beaten and left to die. Just like Elena. His little sister had been 23 when they'd taken her. Blonde curls, bright green eyes. They'd sent him pieces of her with notes explaining exactly what they'd done. Dante had killed every single person involved. Where exactly? East District, Marchetti Alley. I know where it is. Bring the car. Luca's eyebrows rose. Sir Pietro can handle disposal. I'll handle it. Dante didn't explain himself. His word was law. When they arrived, he saw her, a broken doll crumpled against brick, rain washing away evidence. She was young. Too young for this violence. But her eyes, brilliant green, even through pain, held defiance. Dying, and still fighting. When she grabbed his wrist and begged him to teach her how to make them scream, Dante Valerian made a decision that would reshape both their lives. He carried her to the car, feeling the weight of her broken body, and something in him, something he'd thought dead with Elena, stirred to life. I'll make you strong enough that no one can ever hurt you again, he promised silently. And when you're ready, we'll burn down everyone who put you in that alley. It was the most dangerous promise he'd ever made. Not because he couldn't keep it. But because, for the first time in 14 years, Dante Valerian actually cared whether he did. Isla woke to whiteness. Not the whiteness of heaven. She'd forfeited that destination the moment she'd chosen darkness in the alley. But the clinical whiteness of high thread count sheets, marble floors, and walls that seemed to glow with their own expensive luminescence. Pain hit her next. Every nerve ending screamed. Her ribs felt like shattered glass grinding against her lungs. Her face throbbed with a heat that suggested significant swelling. When she tried to move her left arm, agony shot through her shoulder. Don't. The voice came from her right, deep, commanding, familiar. You have 3 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder that's been reset, severe facial contusions, and internal bleeding that required emergency surgery. Moving is inadvisable. Isla turned her head, slowly because even that hurt, and found him sitting in a leather chair beside the bed. Dante Valerian. The Mafia King. Still in his black suit, though he'd removed the jacket. His white shirt was rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and scattered with scars that spoke of a violent history. He looked like sin poured into expensive fabric. Where am I? Her voice came out ruined, barely a rasp. My home. The medical wing. He gestured to the 4 drip connected to her arm, the monitors beeping steadily beside the bed. Dr. Castellano spent 6 hours putting you back together. You're welcome. The sarcasm in that last part was so dry it took her a moment to register it. She tried to sit up, stupid given the pain, and immediately regretted it when the room spun. Dante was beside her in an instant, his hands on her shoulders, easing her back down with surprising gentleness. I said don't move. Do you have a death wish, or are you simply incapable of following instructions? Why? The words scraped out of her damaged throat. Why what? Why did you save me? Isla stared at him, at those dark eyes that revealed nothing. You don't know me. I'm nobody. Why would the Dante Valerian risk exposure for a dying girl in an alley? Something shifted in his expression, too quick to name, gone before she could analyze it. He returned to his chair, crossing one ankle over his knee with the casual confidence of a man who owned everything he touched. You remind me of someone, he said finally. Someone I failed to save once. I don't make the same mistake twice. Your sister. His eyes snapped to hers, sharp as blades. How do you? Everyone knows the story. The Valerian massacre. Your family killed, your sister taken by the Bratva, her body never recovered. Isla's voice was barely above a whisper, but she held his gaze. You built an empire on their graves. Became untouchable so no one could hurt you again. If you know all that, Dante said softly, dangerously, then you know I don't do sentiment. I don't do charity. And I certainly don't save broken girls out of the goodness of my heart. Then why? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for the first time, she saw something real flicker across his face. Something that looked almost like pain. Because when I found you, you had two options: accept death, or choose to become something that could never be destroyed again. And you chose violence. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. That kind of will is rare. Wasting it seemed inefficient. Isla processed this. Everything hurt, her body, her heart, the shattered remains of who she'd been 3 hours or 3 days or however long ago it had been. Time felt elastic, unreliable. What happens now? She asked. Now you heal. Castellano estimates 6 weeks for the bones, longer for the internal damage. Dante stood, buttoning his cuffs with precise movements. During that time, you'll stay here. My home, my protection. No one touches you. And after you decide. You can leave, try to rebuild whatever life you had before. I'll give you money, a new identity if you want it. You'll never see me again. Or. His eyes locked on hers, and Isla felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing. Or you stay. I train you. Combat, strategy, manipulation, everything you need to survive in a world that eats soft things alive. I'll teach you how power works, how to take it, how to keep it. And when you're ready, when you're strong enough, I'll help you destroy the people who put you in that alley. Isla's heart hammered against her cracked ribs. Why would you do that? Because I have resources you don't. Connections, information, reach. And because watching entitled monsters discover that their discarded victims have become apex predators. Dante's smile turned cold, predatory. That's the kind of entertainment money can't buy. What do you get out of it? Besides entertainment? He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the frame. I get someone who owes me everything. Someone loyal, because I gave them the tools for revenge when they had nothing. That kind of debt is more valuable than gold. It should have terrified her, the calculation in his voice, the casual way he spoke of building weapons out of broken people. But Isla felt that cold, dark thing inside her respond with recognition. He wasn't offering salvation. He was offering evolution. I want to see them, she said suddenly. Victoria. Julian. Celeste. I want to know what they're doing right now, while I'm here. Dante pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward her. It was a social media post. Celeste, radiant in a white dress, clutching Julian's arm. The caption read, "Thrilled to announce our engagement. Some people are meant to find each other. #blessed #forever starts now." The photo had been posted 6 hours ago. 6 hours after they'd left Isla to die. The comments were full of congratulations, heart emojis, friends celebrating their happiness. No one asked about Isla. No one wondered where the original fiancé had gone. She'd been erased, replaced, forgotten. Like she'd never existed at all. Isla stared at that photo, at Julian's smile, at Celeste's triumphant expression, at the ring on her finger that was probably paid for with the money they'd gotten from selling Isla, and felt something inside her calcify into diamond-hard resolve. I'll stay, she said, her ruined voice steady. Teach me everything. I want to watch them lose everything the way I did. I want them to know it was me. I want. Her voice broke. Not from pain, but from the enormity of her rage. Dante crossed back to the bed and did something unexpected. He took her hand. His grip was firm, almost bruising, anchoring her to this moment, this choice. Say it, he commanded. Say what you want. Isla looked up at him, at this beautiful, terrible man who'd pulled her from death and offered her damnation, and let the truth pour out. I want them to suffer. I want to take everything they love and burn it to ash. I want them to beg, and I want to laugh while they do. Tears streamed down her face, hot and furious. I want to become the monster they created. Good. Dante's thumb brushed across her knuckles, the only gentle thing about him. Then we begin tomorrow. Rest now. Because the girl who walked into that house trusting her family? She's dead. Tomorrow, we start building her replacement. He released her hand and moved toward the door. Dante. He paused, glancing back. Thank you. The words felt inadequate, ridiculous even, but she needed to say them. For not leaving me there. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, don't thank me yet, Isla. What I'm going to turn you into. Some days you'll wish I'd left you in that alley. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Isla lay in the expensive bed, in the home of the most dangerous man in the city, and felt the last pieces of her old self crumble away. She thought about her father, about the kind man who'd taught her that forgiveness was strength. She thought about the girl she'd been that morning, naive, trusting, soft. That girl was gone. Dead in an alley, unmourned and unmissed. What rose from her ashes would be something new. Something forged in betrayal and tempered in rage. Isla closed her eyes and made a promise to the ghost of who she'd been. I will make them pay. For both of us. I will become untouchable, unbreakable, undeniable. And when I'm done, they'll know that throwing me away was the worst mistake of their miserable lives. Somewhere in the penthouse, Dante Valerian stood at his window overlooking the city and wondered what he'd just set in motion. He'd saved broken people before, folded them into his organization, used their desperation to build loyalty. But something about Isla was different. Maybe it was the way she'd grabbed his wrist in that alley, dying but defiant. Maybe it was the green of her eyes, so like Elena's. Maybe it was the recognition he'd felt looking at her, the understanding that they were the same kind of broken. Or maybe he was just tired of being alone in his empire of shadows, and having someone who understood darkness seemed better than the alternative. Either way, he'd made his choice. Now they'd both have to live with the consequences. The first week passed in a haze of medication and monitored sleep. Isla drifted in and out of consciousness, her body demanding rest while her mind replayed the betrayal on an endless loop. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Julian's bored expression, Celeste's malicious smile, Victoria's steady hand lighting that cigarette while discussing Isla's sale like she was furniture being liquidated. Dr. Castellano, a thin man in his 60s with kind eyes and hands that had clearly stitched up more bullet wounds than surgical textbooks recommended, visited twice daily. He checked her vitals, adjusted her medications, and spoke to her in gentle Italian that she didn't understand but found oddly comforting. Dante visited exactly once per day. Always at 9 p.m. Never staying longer than 10 minutes. He'd sit in that leather chair, review her progress with Castellano, ask if she needed anything, and leave before she could form a real conversation. It was clinical. Distant. Like she was a project he was monitoring, not a person he'd saved. It infuriated her. By day 8, Isla could sit up without the room spinning. By day 10, she could walk to the bathroom without assistance, though her ribs screamed in protest. By day 12, she was ready to tear the 4 out of her arm and demand answers. She got her chance that evening when Dante arrived for his usual 9 o'clock check-in. "I want to start training," she said before he could sit down. He paused, one eyebrow lifting. "You can barely walk across the room." "I can walk fine." "Yesterday you vomited from the pain of standing too quickly." Heat flooded her cheeks. Of course he knew about that. He probably had cameras everywhere, watching her every moment of weakness. "I'm stronger than I look." "You're barely healed." Dante sat, crossing his legs with that infuriating casual grace. He wore all black tonight, dress shirt, slacks, even his watch was black-faced. He looked like death's well-dressed accountant. "Castellano says another 3 weeks before you're cleared for physical activity." 3 weeks. Isla's voice rose despite her best efforts to stay calm. "While I'm lying here doing nothing, they're out there living their lives. Planning their wedding. Spending my inheritance. They think I'm dead, Dante. They think they won. They did win." His voice was flat, emotionless. "You're here. They're there. They have everything, you have nothing. Those are facts." The words hit like physical blows. Isla's hands fisted in the sheets, her nails biting into her palms. "You said you'd help me destroy them." "I said I'd teach you how to destroy them. There's a difference." Dante leaned forward, his dark eyes pinning her in place. "Right now, you're a victim with rage and broken bones. That's not enough. They'd crush you in minutes. So yes, you wait. You heal. You learn patience, because revenge executed too early is just suicide with extra steps. Stop talking to me like I'm a child. Stop acting like one." Silence crackled between them, sharp and dangerous. Isla wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him feel even a fraction of the helplessness churning inside her. But he was right, and that made it worse. "I can't just lie here," she said finally, hating how small her voice sounded. "Every minute I'm doing nothing there. They're getting comfortable. Complacent. Believing they're safe." Dante stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Let them. Comfortable enemies make mistakes. You want revenge? Then be smart about it. Heal properly. Train properly. Become someone they won't see coming." He moved toward the door. "Why do you care?" The question burst out of her before she could stop it. "You said I remind you of your sister, but I'm not her. I'm nobody. So why keep me here? Why feed me, protect me, pay for doctors and medications, and," her voice cracked, "why not just give me a gun and an address and let me handle it myself?" Dante stopped, his back to her. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. The silence stretched so long that Isla thought he might just leave without answering. "Then, because I watched my sister die knowing she was helpless. Knowing I'd failed to make her strong enough to protect herself." He turned, and something raw flickered across his face before the mask slammed back down. "You asked me to teach you. I agreed. But I won't send you to your death just because you're impatient. If you want to leave, the door's unlocked. I'll give you money and a head start. But if you stay, you follow my rules." "Your rules," Isla repeated. "Stay in bed. Be patient. Trust the process. Trust you." "Yes. I trusted my family. Look where that got me." Dante's jaw tightened. "I'm not your family." "No. You're worse." The words came out bitter, sharp. "At least they pretended to care. You don't even bother with the lie. I'm a project to you. An investment. Something you saved because I remind you of someone, not because you actually give a damn about me. She expected anger. Expected him to walk out, maybe withdraw his offer entirely. Instead, he crossed back to her bedside and leaned down, his hands braced on either side of her, caging her in. This close, she could see the faint scar on his jawline, smell the expensive cologne that probably cost more than her childhood wardrobe. His eyes were so dark they were nearly black, and they held hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "You're right," he said softly, dangerously. "I don't care about you. I don't care about anyone. Caring is a liability I eliminated from my life the day they sent me my sister's fingers in a box." His voice was ice over steel. "But I keep my promises. I said I'd make you strong enough to never be destroyed again, and I will. Not because you're special, not because I love you, but because I don't fail twice. So yes, you're a project. A goal. An objective to be completed. If that's not good enough for you, there's the door." Isla stared at him, at the brutal honesty in his face, and felt something shift inside her. He wasn't offering her comfort or connection or any of the pretty lies people use to manipulate each other. He was offering her the truth, cold, transactional, real. And somehow, that was more than anyone else had ever given her. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll wait. I'll heal. I'll follow your rules." "Good." He straightened, putting distance between them again, and Isla immediately felt the loss of that dangerous proximity. "But I have conditions too," she added, finding her voice. "I want updates. On them. Victoria, Julian, Celeste. I want to know what they're doing, where they're going. I want." "No. What?" "Obsessing over them will poison your focus." Dante adjusted his cuffs, his movements precise and controlled. "You'll train, you'll learn, and when you're ready, when I say you're ready, then we'll discuss surveillance." "That's not fair." "Life isn't fair, Isla. That's the first lesson." He moved to the door again. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow Castellano clears you for physical therapy. It's going to hurt. Considerably." He left before she could respond. Isla sat in the quiet room, surrounded by machines and monitors and expensive sheets, and felt the walls closing in. She wanted to hate him, this cold, calculating man who spoke about her like she was a project plan. But beneath the anger, she felt something else. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. Dante Valerian didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. He was brutal, honest, and utterly uncompromising. In a world that had taught her that pretty words hid ugly truths, his bluntness was almost refreshing. Almost. 3 floors up, in his private office, Dante poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and tried to ignore the tension coiling in his shoulders. He'd meant every word. Isla was a project. A promise to be kept. Nothing more. So why did her accusation sting? Why did the hurt in her eyes make something uncomfortable shift in his chest? "Boss." Luca appeared in the doorway. "The surveillance on the Monroe estate is in place. We've got eyes on the stepmother, the stepsister, and the ex-fiancé. Also, financial records show they've already started liquidating Isla's trust. Transferred $800,000 to an offshore account yesterday." Dante's grip tightened on his glass. "Greedy and stupid. Predictable. Should we intervene?" "No. Let them take it all. Every penny. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall." He took a sip of whiskey, letting it burn down his throat. "What about the girl? Any complaints? Requests?" "Just the outburst you witnessed. Castellano says she's healing faster than expected. Strong constitution. She'll need it." Luca hesitated. "Boss, are you sure about this? Training her, I mean. We don't take in civilians. Ever. It's a security risk, not to mention." "Are you questioning me?" The temperature in the room dropped. "No, sir. Just expressing concern." Dante set down his glass and fixed Luca with a stare that had made grown men confess to crimes they hadn't committed. "Concern is appreciated. Questioning is not. She stays. She trains. End of discussion." "Understood." After Luca left, Dante returned to the window overlooking his city. Somewhere out there, 3 people were celebrating their victory, believing they'd erased an inconvenient girl from their perfect lives. They had no idea that girl was still breathing. Healing. Planning. And when she was ready, when he'd forged her into something deadly, they'd learned that some mistakes don't stay buried. They come back. With teeth. The physical therapy was hell. Isla had thought she understood pain. The alley had taught her about breaking, about bleeding, about what it felt like when your body gave up. But this was different. This was choosing to hurt, pushing through screaming muscles and grinding bones, forcing her body to remember how to be strong. Castellano supervised every session with the patience of a saint and the mercilessness of a drill sergeant. Stretches that made her sweat through her clothes. Exercises that left her shaking and nauseous. Each day, a little more movement. Each day, a little less morphine. By week 3, she could walk without limping. By week 4, she could lift her arms above her head without crying. Dante watched sometimes, standing in the doorway like a dark sentinel, his expression unreadable. He never commented, never encouraged, just observed with those calculating eyes before disappearing back into whatever shadows he emerged from. It made her work harder, push further, just to prove she wasn't weak. Wasn't breakable. Wasn't the girl who died in that alley. On the 32nd day of her captivity, because that's what it was, really, a gilded cage with medical equipment, everything changed. Isla was in the physical therapy room, working through her exercises, when the building's lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then darkness, broken only by emergency lighting that cast everything in red. Castellano, she called out, but the doctor had stepped out moments earlier to take a phone call. The door burst open. Not Castellano. Luca, Dante's second-in-command, his normally composed face tight with tension. We need to move. Now. What's happening? Rival family. They hit 3 of our locations simultaneously. This building isn't secure. He grabbed her arm, not roughly, but with undeniable urgency. Boss's orders. You come with me. They moved through corridors Isla had never seen, down emergency stairwells that smelled like concrete and old fear. She could hear sounds now, sharp cracks that her brain took a moment to identify as gunfire. Shouts. Breaking glass. Someone was attacking Dante's home. Luca pulled her into a parking garage where a nondescript sedan waited, engine running. He shoved her into the back seat just as the far door exploded inward. Men in tactical gear poured through, weapons raised. Stay down. Luca barked, returning fire as the car peeled out. Isla pressed herself to the floor, her heart hammering against her still-healing ribs. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was Dante Valorian's fortress. Untouchable. Unbreachable. But nothing was untouchable. She should have learned that by now. The safe house was 40 minutes outside the city, a modernist structure of glass and steel perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Beautiful and remote. The kind of place no one would think to look. Luca ushered her inside, checked every room with military precision, then made 3 phone calls in rapid Italian. When he finished, his face was grim. Boss is handling the situation. He'll be here within the hour. Until then, you stay inside. Don't answer the door for anyone but me or him. Understood. Luca, what happened? Not my place to explain. He'll brief you. He headed for the door. Wait. You're leaving. I have to get back. Coordinate defense, identify the leak. He paused at the threshold. Lock the door behind me. There's food in the kitchen, weapons in the upstairs safe. Code is 4-7-3 Elena. Use them if you have to. Elena. Dante's sister's name. The door closed, leaving Isla alone in a strange house while somewhere in the city, the man who'd saved her was fighting for his empire. She should feel nothing. He'd made it clear she was just a project, an investment. His problems weren't hers. But her hands were shaking, and it wasn't from her injuries. An hour passed. Then 2. Isla paced the living room, watching the ocean crash against rocks far below, her mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. What if they'd gotten to him? What if he was hurt, bleeding, dying the way she'd been dying when he found her? What if she never got to show him she could be more than a broken girl he'd taken pity on? The thought stopped her cold. When had that become important? When had Dante Valorian's opinion started mattering more than her revenge? The sound of a car engine cut through her spiraling thoughts. Isla grabbed the gun from the safe, a sleek Glock that felt foreign and dangerous in her hand, and positioned herself behind the door. Luca had said an hour. It had been 3. This could be anyone. A key turned in the lock. The door opened, and Dante Valorian stepped through, and Isla's breath caught. He was covered in blood. It soaked his shirt, splattered across his face, darkened his hands to rust red. His hair was disheveled, his jacket gone, his white shirt torn at the shoulder revealing what looked like a graze wound. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. You're alive, she said stupidly. Disappointed. His voice was rough, exhausted. Are you hurt? Most of this isn't mine. He closed the door, locked it with methodical precision despite his obvious fatigue. The situation is contained. The rival family has been neutralized. Neutralized. Such a clinical word for what was clearly mass violence. Isla set the gun down on the entry table. You're bleeding. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Sit down. When he didn't move, she added, please. Maybe it was the please. Maybe he was just too tired to argue. Either way, Dante let her guide him to the leather couch. He sank into it with a barely suppressed groan, his careful control finally slipping. Up close, she could see more damage. Bruises blooming across his jaw. Split knuckles. The bullet graze on his shoulder still seeping blood. He'd fought, hand to hand, up close, personal. First aid kit? She asked. Bathroom. Under the sink. Isla found it and returned, kneeling beside him. Her hands were steadier than she expected as she unbuttoned his ruined shirt, peeling it away from the wound. Dante watched her with hooded eyes, his face unreadable. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "You saved my life. Let me clean a cut." She pressed gauze to the wound, applying pressure. He didn't flinch. "Besides, Castellano taught me basic field medicine. Said it was essential knowledge for what I'm becoming." "And what are you becoming, Isla?" She met his eyes. Even exhausted and bloody, he was still the most intense person she'd ever encountered. "I don't know yet. But not a victim. Never a victim again." Something flickered across his face. Approval, maybe, or recognition. Good answer. She worked in silence, cleaning the graze, applying antiseptic that had to sting even though he didn't react. His skin was warm under her fingers, his body a map of old scars that spoke of a violent history. Each one a story he'd never tell. "Why did they attack?" she asked, securing a bandage. "Territory dispute. The Kozlov deal I closed last month upset some smaller families. They decided to make a statement." Dante's voice was clinical, detached. "They made the wrong statement." "Meaning?" "Meaning they're no longer a problem." Isla's hands paused. She'd known what Dante was: a killer, a criminal, a man who solved problems with violence. But knowing intellectually and seeing the evidence were different things. "Does it bother you?" he asked, reading her hesitation. "What I am? What I do?" She resumed cleaning a cut on his jaw, considering the question. A week ago, maybe it would have. The old Isla, trusting naive Isla, would have been horrified. But that girl was dead. "No," she said honestly. "You're honest about what you are. You don't pretend to be good. That's more than most people. Most people don't leave bodies in their wake. Most people don't save dying girls in alleys either." Their eyes locked, and the air between them thickened with something Isla didn't have a name for. Dante's hand came up his fingers, still stained with blood, brushing her cheek with unexpected gentleness. "You're not afraid of me," he said. "It wasn't a question. Should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. Not anymore." Isla's voice dropped to a whisper. "You made sure of that." Dante's thumb traced her jawline, and she could feel her pulse hammering where his fingers rested. He was close enough that she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell gunpowder and expensive cologne and something darker beneath. Isla. Her name on his lips was a warning. Or a prayer. She couldn't tell which. "You're allowed to be human sometimes, you know," she said softly. "To be tired. Hurt. To let someone take care of you. That's a luxury I can't afford. We're alone. Just us. No empire, no enemies, no rules." She set down the gauze, her hands still resting on his chest. Just two broken people in a safe house by the ocean. For a long moment, Dante didn't move. Then, with a sound that might have been surrender or defeat, he pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her with a desperate intensity that stole her breath. Isla melted into him, her face pressed against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, fast, unsteady, human. His hand tangled in her hair, holding her like she was the only real thing in his world of shadows and violence. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other while the ocean crashed below and night fell around them. Not quite lovers, not quite friends, but something in between. Two people who'd survived impossible things and found, against all logic, that they didn't want to survive alone anymore. "I thought they'd killed you," Isla whispered against his chest. "When you didn't come, when the time kept passing, I thought. I'm here." His voice was rough. "I'm here, and I'm fine, and you're safe. That's what matters." She pulled back enough to look at him. "Why does it matter? I'm just a project, remember? An investment." Dante's expression was unreadable. "Maybe you started that way. And now?" He didn't answer. Instead, he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and stood, putting distance between them. "It's late. You should rest. We'll return to the city tomorrow once I'm certain the threat is eliminated." Just like that, the walls were back up. The vulnerable moment sealed away behind steel and control. But Isla had seen beneath it. Had felt his heart racing, his arms tightening around her. Had heard the relief in his voice when he'd found her armed and ready, not cowering in fear. "Dante." He paused at the stairs. "Thank you. For keeping me safe. Even when you were fighting for your own life." He looked back at her, and for just a second, something raw and real flickered across his face. "Always," he said simply, then disappeared upstairs, leaving Isla alone with the echo of that promise and the terrifying realization that somewhere along the way, her revenge plot had gotten complicated. Because she was starting to care about the monster who'd saved her. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. They stayed at the safe house for 3 days. Dante claimed it was tactical, ensuring the threat was completely neutralized, letting the dust settle, maintaining unpredictability. But Isla suspected it was something else. Something neither of them wanted to name. Here, away from the Empire and its demands, they existed in a strange bubble of almost normalcy. Dante worked from the study, fielding calls and issuing orders in rapid Italian. Isla continued her exercises, pushing her body harder now that she had something to prove. They ate meals together. Not because Dante required it, but because he appeared in the kitchen at mealtimes and cooked, actually cooked, his hands moving with the same precision he applied to everything else. Pasta carbonara. Risotto. Dishes that spoke of an Italian childhood he never discussed. Where did you learn to cook? Isla asked on the second night, watching him dice vegetables with professional efficiency. My mother. The words were clipped, final. End of conversation. But Isla was tired of walls. Tired of dancing around the obvious. Tell me about her. Dante's knife paused mid-cut. Why? Because you know everything about me. My betrayal, my family, my humiliation. It's all laid bare. But you. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You're a ghost. I know the legend, the Valerian massacre, your rise to power. But I don't know you. You don't need to know me. Maybe I want to. He set down the knife and turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Why? So you can find my weaknesses? Use them against me later. Because we're living in the same house. Because you've seen me at my absolute worst. Because, she stopped, searching for words. Because pretending we're just business partners is exhausting, and we're going to be stuck together for months. Maybe years. I'd like to know who I'm stuck with. Dante studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes searching her face for something she couldn't name. Then, unexpectedly, he sighed. My mother was a teacher. Literature. She loved Dante Alighieri, hence my name. She used to read the Inferno to us before bed, which explains a lot about my childhood. His voice was controlled, but something softer edged the words. She believed in beauty, in culture, in the idea that people could be better than their circumstances. She sounds wonderful. She was wrong. Dante returned to chopping vegetables, but his movements were more aggressive now. Being good, being cultured, being educated, none of it protected her when they came. She died begging for Elena's life, and they killed her anyway. Shot her in our kitchen while we hid in the pantry and listened. Isla's chest tightened. Dante. I was 19. Elena was 16. They took her because she was pretty valuable. Left me alive because killing the son meant the family name died, but keeping me alive meant decades of psychological torture. He laughed, bitter and sharp. They were right. I spent 5 years tracking her, finding leads, following breadcrumbs. And when I finally located her. He stopped, his knuckles white around the knife handle. You don't have to. They sent me a box. His voice went flat, emotionless. Delivered to my door with a bow. Inside were her fingers. All 10 of them. And a note that said, she screamed for you. Where were you, big brother? The kitchen felt too small suddenly, too suffocating. Isla wanted to say something, anything, but words felt inadequate against that kind of horror. I killed them all, Dante continued, his tone conversational now, disconnected. Slowly. Personally. I made them beg, made them confess, made them understand that touching my sister was the worst mistake of their miserable lives. And when it was over, when they were all dead, I didn't feel better. I just felt empty. He finally looked at her, and the rawness in his eyes stole her breath. So that's who you're stuck with, Isla. A man who built an empire on corpses and carries his failures like stones. A man who saves dying girls in alleys because maybe, just maybe, if he saves enough of them, it'll balance the scales for the one he couldn't save. He set down the knife. Still want to know me? Isla crossed the kitchen and did something reckless. She took his hands. They were trembling, barely, almost imperceptibly, but trembling nonetheless. Yes, she said firmly. Because you're not just the monster you think you are. You're also the man who sat by my bed every night for a week, even though you thought I was unconscious. You're the man who teaches me combat forms with patience, who cooks dinner, who risks his life to keep a stranger safe. She squeezed his hands. You're more than your worst day. And you. Dante's voice was rough. Are you more than yours? The question hit like a physical blow. Isla thought about the girl who'd walked into that living room trusting her family. The girl who'd believed love was real and people were fundamentally good. I don't know yet, she admitted. But I'm trying to be. Dante's thumb brushed across her knuckles, and the gesture felt more intimate than it should. The day they sold you, tell me what happened. All of it. Not the version you've told yourself to make it bearable. The truth. Isla's first instinct was to refuse, to keep that pain locked away where it couldn't hurt her. But fair was fair. He'd opened his scars. She could open hers. So she told him. About her father, who died when she was 19, sudden heart attack, no warning, no goodbye. About Victoria, who'd married him 3 years earlier and seemed genuinely loving until the will was read. About Celeste, her stepsister, who'd been her best friend once. Or so Isla had thought. I introduced her to Julian, Isla said, the words tasting like ash. At a gallery opening. I was so proud to show off my fiancé, my perfect life. I didn't see the way they looked at each other. Or maybe I did and I just ignored it. Love makes us blind. No. Fear makes us blind. I was afraid of being alone after losing my father, so I clung to Julian. I was afraid of conflict, so I didn't confront the signs. I chose comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. She pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. That's the worst part. I wasn't just betrayed. I was complicit in my own destruction. That's not. It is. Her voice cracked. The morning they sold me, Victoria had been hinting for weeks that she needed money. Celeste kept borrowing my clothes, my jewelry, my life. Julian became distant, always working late, never wanting to discuss wedding details. I saw all of it and convinced myself I was being paranoid. That good people didn't suspect their family of plotting against them. Dante moved closer, and this time when he touched her, hands on her shoulders steady and grounding, she didn't pull away. You trusted the people who were supposed to love you, he said quietly. That's not weakness. That's what you were supposed to do. They're the ones who broke the contract, not you. But I should have been smarter. Stronger. I should have. You should have had a family that didn't sell you like livestock. His grip tightened. Everything that happened to you was their choice, their evil, their failure. Not yours. Isla looked up at him, at this man who understood exactly what it felt like to carry unearned guilt, and felt something shift between them. They were mirror images, really. Both destroyed by the people they'd trusted. Both rebuilt from ashes and rage. When I go back, she whispered, when I face them, I don't want to just destroy them financially or socially. I want them to feel what I felt. That moment when everything you believed was real turns out to be a lie. When the person you trusted most becomes the person you fear most. Her hands fisted in his shirt. Is that evil? Am I becoming the monster? Dante's expression softened, barely, but enough that she noticed. Wanting justice isn't evil. How you pursue it determines whether you're the monster or the hunter. And I'll make sure you're the latter. Do you think Isla has a right to make them suffer the way she suffered? Tell us what you think in the comments. How? By teaching you control. Discipline. How to be ruthless without losing yourself. He released her shoulders but didn't step back. Your step-family destroyed you because they could. Because they had power and you were vulnerable. But power isn't just money or connections. It's knowing when to strike and when to wait. When to show mercy and when to show teeth. That's what separates predators from prey. And you'll teach me that? I'll teach you everything. They stood in the kitchen, close enough that Isla could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the faint scar on his jaw, could count his heartbeats and the pulse at his throat. Dante? Why did you really save me? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because when I saw you in that alley, broken and bleeding, you reminded me of Elena. But that's not why I'm keeping you now. Then why? His hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. Because you remind me of me. Before the Empire, before the killing, when I was just a scared boy who'd lost everything and didn't know if revenge would fill the hole or make it bigger. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I see that question in your eyes every day. And I need, to show you that there's an answer. What answer? That you can burn down your enemies and still remain human. That justice doesn't have to cost you your soul. He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. That broken doesn't mean irreparable. Isla's breath caught. This close, she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel his breath against her lips, could sense the careful control he maintained even now. You're not broken, she whispered. Yes, I am. We both are. His voice was raw. But maybe we're broken in compatible ways. The moment stretched, heavy with possibility. Isla knew if she closed the distance, if she kissed him, everything would change. The careful boundaries they'd maintained would shatter, and whatever came next would be complicated and dangerous and probably destructive. She leaned in anyway. Dante's lips met hers with a hunger that spoke of months of restraint finally breaking. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer as she pressed against him, desperate for the contact, for the proof that she was alive and real and not alone. The kiss was fierce, consuming, tasting of shared pain and understanding. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isla saw something in Dante's eyes she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. This complicates things, he said roughly. Everything was already complicated. Isla. Don't. She pressed a finger to his lips. Don't tell me this is a mistake. Don't tell me we're just damaged people seeking comfort. Don't logic this away. What do you want me to say? That you feel it too. This thing between us that's more than mentor and student, more than project and investment. Her voice dropped. That I'm not alone in this madness. Dante closed his eyes, and when he opened them, the mask was gone. Just a man, scarred and tired and achingly human. You're not alone, he said. You never were. Not since that alley. They came together again, and this time it was slower, gentler. A promise instead of an explosion. Dante lifted her onto the counter, his hands framing her face like she was something precious, breakable. We can't undo this, he warned. Once we cross this line. Good. Isla wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him closer. I'm tired of lines. I want the truth, Dante. Even if it's messy and complicated and ruins everything. He kissed her again, and in that kiss was every word they'd never say. Every scar they'd never fully heal. Every broken piece they'd carry forever. But also, hope. Connection. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, two shattered people could build something whole. Later, wrapped in sheets and moonlight in the safe house bedroom, Isla traced the scars on Dante's chest and thought about justice and revenge and the difference between the two. When we go back, she whispered, when we start the plan, promise me something. What? That we won't lose this. Whatever this is. That destroying them won't destroy us. Dante's arms tightened around her. I promise we'll try. It wasn't the guarantee she wanted, but it was honest. And after a lifetime of lies, honest was enough. 3 months passed like a fever dream. They returned to the city transformed, not just individually, but as a unit. Dante stopped pretending Isla was merely a project. Isla stopped pretending she didn't care whether he came home at night. They existed in a strange space between partnership and something deeper, something neither was quite ready to name. The training intensified. Every morning at 6, Dante met her in the private gym. Combat training, Krav Maga, boxing, tactical defense. He was merciless, never pulling punches, pushing her until sweat soaked her clothes and her muscles screamed. But afterward, he'd press ice to her bruises and murmur praise in Italian that she was learning to understand. Brava. Forte. Say incredible. Good. Strong. You're incredible. Afternoons were strategy. Dante taught her to read people, to manipulate conversations, to identify weaknesses in armor made of ego and greed. He brought in members of his organization, enforcers, accountants, lawyers, and had her practice extracting information through charm, intimidation, seduction. Everyone has a pressure point, he explained one afternoon, watching her negotiate with his head of operations. Find it, apply pressure, and they'll give you anything. Isla found she had a gift for it. Years of reading people to avoid her stepmother's moods had honed instincts she'd never recognized. She could make men underestimate her with a shy smile, then pivot to steal when they least expected it. You're a natural, Dante said after she'd successfully manipulated his most skeptical lieutenant into revealing confidential information. Pride colored his voice. They never see you coming. I learned from the best. His lips curved. Flattery. Truth. Evenings were theirs. Sometimes they worked, Dante reviewing empire business while Isla studied financial records, learning how money moved through legal and illegal channels. But other times, they simply existed together. Cooking dinner. Watching the city lights. Talking about everything except the growing connection neither wanted to examine too closely. On the 97th day, Dante appeared at her door with a dress bag and an expression that might have been nervousness on anyone else. Get dressed. We're going out. Isla raised an eyebrow. Out. The Castellano Charity Gala. Annual event, high society, everyone who matters in the city. You need to learn how to navigate that world. He handed her the bag. This should fit. Inside was a gown that probably cost more than her father's estate. Midnight blue silk that shimmered like water, elegant and understated in a way that screamed wealth. Dante, I can't. You can. You will. This is part of your education. He moved to leave, then paused. Besides, I want to show you something. What? What it feels like to walk into a room and own it. 2 hours later, Isla descended the stairs and watched Dante's carefully controlled expression crack. His eyes darkened, traveling from her styled hair to the dress that hugged every curve, to the heels that made her legs look endless. You look. He stopped, cleared his throat. Ready. Just ready. Dangerous, he amended, offering his arm. Absolutely lethal. Those socialites won't know what hit them. The gala was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, all crystal chandeliers and marble floors, champagne flowing like water, people dripping in diamonds and designer labels. Isla felt her old anxieties rising. These were Victoria's people. The world that had raised her to be decorative and compliant. But Dante's hand settled on the small of her back, steady and grounding. Remember what I taught you, he murmured. Confidence is a weapon. Posture is armor. You belong here more than any of them. He was right. Isla lifted her chin and walked into that ballroom like she owned it. And they noticed. Heads turned. Conversations paused. The woman on Dante Valorian's arm was a mystery, beautiful, poised, unknown. Exactly the kind of puzzle high society loved to solve. Mr. Valorian. A silver-haired man approached, politician written in every line of his expensive suit. What a surprise to see you here. And who is this lovely creature? Isabella, Dante said smoothly, using the formal version of her name she'd never heard before. My associate. Associate. The man's eyes gleamed with speculation. How professional. They worked the room together, Dante introducing her to judges, CEOs, crime lords in tailored suits. Isla smiled, charmed, deflected invasive questions with the grace Dante had drilled into her. She was no longer the naive girl who trusted too easily. She was someone new. Someone dangerous. You're enjoying this, Dante observed during a rare quiet moment, his hand still possessive on her waist. I'm enjoying watching them try to figure out who I am. What I want. Whether I'm a threat. Isla sipped her champagne. They have no idea I'm already dead. That the girl they might have pitied once doesn't exist anymore. Who are you now? She met his eyes. I don't know yet. But I'm closer to finding out. The orchestra struck up a waltz, and Dante extended his hand. Dance with me. I don't know how to. I'll teach you. I'm good at that. On the dance floor, with his hand at her waist and hers on his shoulder, Isla felt the rest of the world fall away. Dante guided her through the steps with patient precision, his body leading hers in a conversation that needed no words. When I was young, he said quietly, before everything, my mother used to dance with my father in our kitchen. Badly. They'd laugh and step on each other's feet, and Elena and I would watch and think that's what love looked like. Easy. Joyful. Safe. Dante. I thought I'd never have that. After they died, after Elena, I convinced myself that closeness meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant death. His eyes held hers, intense and searching. You're changing that math. Isla's heart hammered. How? By being equally dangerous. By understanding that love doesn't have to mean weakness if both people are strong. He pulled her closer, his voice dropping. By making me want things I thought I'd buried with my family. What things? Partnership. Trust. Someone who sees my darkness and doesn't run. His thumb traced her spine. You. The music swelled around them, but Isla heard only her own heartbeat and his quiet confession. I'm falling in love with you, she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. And it terrifies me because the last time I loved someone, they destroyed me. Dante's expression softened in a way she'd never seen. I know. I'm terrified too. But I think. He paused, searching for words. I think maybe being terrified together is better than being safe alone. Is that your version of a love confession? Yes. I'm not good at pretty words. But I'm good at truth. He leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. I love you, Isla. Completely. Dangerously. In a way that probably makes me more vulnerable than I've been in 14 years. And I'm choosing it anyway. Tears pricked her eyes. Around them, high society swirled, oblivious to the moment shattering and reforming between two broken people in the center of their glittering world. When we destroy them, Isla said, when we take everything from Victoria and Julian and Celeste, promise me we won't become them. Promise me we'll remember this. Who we are right now. People who chose love even though it's terrifying. Dante kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. I promise. We'll be monsters to our enemies and human with each other. That's the balance. The song ended. The room applauded. And as Dante led her off the dance floor, Isla felt something she hadn't felt since before the alley. Hope. They left the gala early, unable to maintain the pretense when all they wanted was each other. In the car ride home, Dante held her hand, his thumb tracing patterns on her wrist. I have something for you, he said as they entered the penthouse. He led her to his office and unlocked a drawer, withdrawing a slim folder. Inside were documents, identity papers, bank accounts, business registrations. What is this? Your empire. I've been building it for 2 months. Legitimate businesses, real estate, tech investments, import, export. All under a holding company in your name. Untraceable to me, fully independent. He handed her a credit card. Unlimited access. Complete control. You're not dependent on me anymore, Isla. You have your own power now. Isla stared at the documents, overwhelmed. This was freedom. Agency. Everything she'd lost when her family betrayed her. Why? Because you deserve to stand on your own foundation. And because. He cupped her face. Because I don't want you with me out of gratitude or debt. I want you to choose me because you want to. Not because you need to. She kissed him then, pouring every ounce of gratitude and love and terrified hope into it. When they broke apart, both breathless, she pressed her forehead to his. I choose you, she whispered. Not because you saved me. But because you see me. All of me. The broken parts and the dangerous parts and the parts still learning how to be whole. I see you. His voice was rough. And you're magnificent. That night, in his bed with moonlight painting silver across tangled sheets, Isla Monroe and Dante Valerian became something neither had planned for. Partners. Lovers. Two people building something real from the ashes of their separate hells. Are you ready? Dante asked as dawn crept through the windows. To face them? We've been building you up for months. You're strong now. Skilled. You have resources, training and me. if you want to start the revenge plan. Not yet, Isla said, surprising herself. I want one more thing first. What? I want to build something beautiful. Something that's mine, that has nothing to do with them or revenge or pain. I want to prove I'm more than what they made me. Dante's smile was genuine, unguarded. Then that's what we'll do. Build your empire. Make them watch you rise. And when you're ready, when you're so far above them they have to crane their necks to see you, then we'll show them what it costs to throw away someone extraordinary. Isla curled against him, feeling safe and dangerous all at once. For the first time since the alley, she didn't dream of blood and betrayal. She dreamed of tomorrow. 2 years later. Isla Monroe, now known in business circles as Isabella Russo, CEO of Russo Enterprises, stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office and surveyed the city that had once swallowed her whole. She'd built an empire. Legitimate, powerful, untouchable. Her tech investments had exploded, her real estate portfolio spanned 3 states, and her import-export business moved luxury goods through channels so clean they gleamed. She was 24 years old and worth $200 million. More importantly, she was feared. Not the way Dante was feared, through violence and blood, but through precision. Through the kind of ruthless business acumen that left competitors wondering how they'd lost before they even realized the game had started. And she'd done it herself. With Dante's guidance, yes, but using her own mind, her own instincts, her own carefully cultivated reputation. Victoria, Julian, and Celeste had no idea she existed. They thought Isla Monroe had died in an alley 2 years ago. Some vagrant's corpse, never identified, buried in a pauper's grave. They'd attended a memorial service. Isla had watched the footage, where Victoria dabbed at dry eyes and Celeste clung to Julian's arm, playing the grieving stepsister perfectly. The inheritance had been liquidated. The estate sold. They'd taken everything and moved to the Upper East Side, living large on blood money. Tonight, that ended. Tonight, Phase 1 began. You look ready to burn the world down. Dante's voice came from the doorway. He'd let himself in with the key she'd given him, one of 1,000 small intimacies that marked their relationship. He wore all black, as usual, but softness touched his expression when he looked at her. Love, hard-earned and fiercely protected. Just their world. Isla turned, and her breath still caught at the sight of him. 2 years together, and he still made her heart race. Are your people in place? Every piece on the board. Luca's team has eyes on Julian's firm. Marco's watching Celeste's boutique. We've got surveillance on Victoria's penthouse. He crossed to her, hands settling on her waist. But I need to hear you say it. That you're sure. Because once we start this, there's no taking it back. Isla had been sure for 2 years. Sure the moment she'd chosen darkness in that alley. But she understood what Dante was really asking. Are you sure you can handle what comes next? The guilt, the consequences, the person you'll become? I'm sure, she said firmly. They sold me like livestock. Erased me. Celebrated on my grave. They deserve everything coming for them. Dante studied her face, then nodded. Then we begin. But Isla, we do this smart. Surgical. We dismantle their lives piece by piece, not in one violent explosion. Agreed. Agreed. He kissed her forehead. I'll be at the club handling business. Call me when it's done. After he left, Isla prepared for her performance. She'd waited 2 years for this moment, building herself into someone unrecognizable. Someone who could walk into her enemy's world and strike without them ever seeing the blade. Tonight's target, Julian's firm. Julian had done well for himself. Cross Financial had grown from a mid-tier investment company to a major player, managing portfolios for the city's elite. He'd leveraged the Monroe inheritance beautifully, paid off the right people, made the right investments, built a reputation for delivering results. All of it funded by the money he'd gotten from selling Isla. She'd spent 6 months positioning herself as a major investor through shell companies and intermediaries. Tonight, at the firm's annual gala, Isabella Russo would make her first public appearance as Cross Financial's newest board member. Julian had no idea he'd just invited a ghost to his celebration. The Grand Meridian Ballroom, the same venue where she and Dante had first danced, glittered with champagne and ambition. Isla entered alone, wrapped in a crimson gown that hugged her transformed body. 2 years of training had carved her into something lean and dangerous. Her blonde hair was darker now, styled in sophisticated waves. Cosmetic work had subtly altered her features, higher cheekbones, different nose. Not drastic, but enough that no one would connect Isabella Russo to the dead girl from Ashford Hills. She was a stranger wearing her own face. Julian spotted her immediately. Of course he did. She'd positioned herself strategically, backlit and impossible to miss. He approached with the practiced charm of a man who'd never faced consequences. Ms. Russo. Julian Cross. He extended his hand, his smile bright and empty. I'm thrilled you could join us tonight. Your investment in our firm is substantial, Isla finished, shaking his hand and watching his face for any flicker of recognition. Nothing. He looked at her the way men like him always looked at beautiful women, with appreciation and calculation, wondering what they could take. I don't invest small, Mr. Cross. When I commit, it's completely. I appreciate that. And please, call me Julian. His eyes traveled over her with unmistakable interest. I don't believe we've met before. I'd remember someone as striking as you. You left me to die in an alley, Isla thought. You watched them beat me until I couldn't scream, and you were annoyed that I was inconvenient. We haven't, she said smoothly. I've been building my portfolio overseas. Just recently returned to the States. Well, welcome back. And welcome to Cross Financial. I think you'll find we're very good at making our investors satisfied. The innuendo was clear. Isla's smile never wavered, even as disgust coiled in her stomach. I'm sure you are. I've done my research. You have quite the reputation. All good, I hope? Impressive. She sipped her champagne. Taking a mid-tier firm and transforming it into a major player in just 2 years? That takes capital and vision. Where did your seed funding come from, if you don't mind me asking? I like to know the origin stories of the companies I invest in. Something flickered across Julian's face, too fast to read. Family money. An inheritance that came through at the right time. How fortunate. Family can be such a blessing. Or a curse, depending. He laughed, hollow and practiced. But you don't want to hear about boring financial history. Tell me about you. What draws a beautiful woman into the cutthroat world of venture capital? Revenge, Isla thought. Pure, calculated, all-consuming revenge. I like winning, she said instead. And I'm very good at identifying value others overlook. They talked for another 20 minutes. Surface-level charm, business platitudes, the dance of people sizing each other up. Julian was everything she remembered, handsome, smooth, utterly devoid of genuine emotion. He touched her arm unnecessarily, leaned too close, made it clear he was interested in more than her investment portfolio. Julian. A voice called across the ballroom. Female, pitched with forced brightness. Celeste appeared in a gold dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd gained weight, not much, but enough to make the dress pull awkwardly at her hips. Her smile was strained, the kind women wore when they suspected their partners were straying but couldn't prove it yet. Darling, there you are. I've been looking everywhere. She looped her arm through Julian's possessively, then turned assessing eyes on Isla. And who's this? Isabella Russo, one of our new board members. Isabella, my wife, Celeste. Wife. They'd actually gone through with it. Married on stolen money and a murdered girl's grave. Pleasure, Isla said, extending her hand. Celeste's handshake was limp, competitive. She was already cataloging Isla as a threat, another beautiful woman in Julian's orbit, another potential affair to manage. Russo, Celeste repeated slowly. That name sounds familiar. Have we met? For one crystalline moment, Isla wondered if she'd been recognized. If 2 years of transformation hadn't been enough. Her heart hammered, but her smile remained serene. I don't think so. I'd remember. Celeste's eyes narrowed. Maybe I've seen your name in the business journals. Julian reads them constantly, always going on about new investors and... Celeste manages a boutique, Julian interrupted, his tone dismissive. High-end fashion. Very successful. How wonderful, Isla said. I love fashion. Perhaps I'll stop by sometime. You should. Celeste's smile didn't reach her eyes. We cater to a very exclusive clientele. Translation, know your place. He's mine. Isla wanted to laugh. After everything, the betrayal, the violence, the years of rebuilding, Celeste was worried about marital fidelity? She had no idea the real threat wasn't another woman. It was justice. I'll definitely visit, Isla promised. I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot of each other. She excused herself gracefully, leaving the couple to their fractured marriage. As she moved through the ballroom, collecting information and planting seeds of doubt with strategic conversations, Isla felt the first piece of her plan click into place. By midnight, she'd accomplished her goals, established Isabella Russo as a force to be reckoned with, secured Julian's interest, both business and personal, and identified 3 executives at Cross Financial who could be turned against him with the right incentives. She was leaving when she saw Victoria. Her stepmother stood near the bar, older now, harder. The careful beauty she'd maintained through Isla's father's money was beginning to crack, lines around her mouth, a tightness in her expression that spoke of stress. She wore diamonds that Isla recognized. Her mother's diamonds. The ones her father had saved for Isla's wedding. The rage that rose was volcanic, instantaneous. Isla's vision tunneled, her carefully maintained control threatening to shatter. She wanted to cross that ballroom, wrap her hands around Victoria's throat, and watch recognition dawn in her eyes before. Her phone vibrated. A text from Dante, remember the plan. Surgical, not emotional. Isla forced herself to breathe. He was right. Losing control now meant losing everything. She left the gala and drove to Dante's club, an upscale establishment that served as his legitimate front and his base of operations. He was in his office, reviewing security footage, but looked up the moment she entered. How did it go? Perfectly. Julian's interested, Celeste is threatened, and I've identified our inside angles. Isla collapsed into the leather chair across from his desk. Victoria was there, wearing my mother's diamonds. Dante's expression darkened. And I wanted to kill her. Right there, in front of everyone. Her voice broke. God, Dante, seeing her face, after everything, I wanted blood. He rounded the desk and pulled her to her feet, his hands framing her face. That's normal. That's human. But you didn't act on it. You maintained control. That's what matters. Is it? Because it doesn't feel like enough. 2 years of preparation, and I'm still that broken girl who... Stop. His voice was firm. You're not that girl. That girl died in an alley. You're something new. Something they created but can't control. And you will destroy them, Isla. Completely. But on your terms, your timeline. Not theirs. She sagged against him, drawing strength from his certainty. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough? You are. I've watched you become a force of nature. You've built an empire, mastered skills most people can't comprehend, transformed yourself into someone extraordinary. He kissed her forehead. They have no idea what's coming for them. And that's exactly how we want it. Isla nodded, letting his confidence steady her. He was right. She'd waited 2 years. She could wait longer. Play the long game. Let them get comfortable before she struck. The plan was simple but devastating: systematically destroy their lives from the inside. Bankrupt Julian's firm through strategic investments and carefully orchestrated scandals. Ruin Celeste's boutique by poaching her clients and suppliers. Leave Victoria isolated and desperate, watching everything she'd stolen crumble to dust. And through it all, they'd never know who was doing it. Until the very end, when Isla revealed herself and watched them understand that the girl they'd thrown away had become the architect of their destruction. It was perfect. It was surgical. It was enough. Or so she thought. 3 days later, everything shattered. Isla was in her office when Luca burst in, his normally composed face tight with urgency. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The Kozlov deal. The one the boss closed 2 years ago, right before he found you. Luca set down a file. There's a complication. A big one. Isla opened the file and felt ice flood her veins. The Kozlov deal had been a territory agreement, distribution rights in the Eastern District. Standard mafia business. But according to the documents in front of her, that territory had been controlled by a smaller operation. One that had owed money to Victoria's gambling creditors. The same creditors who'd bought Isla. Her hands began to shake. Luca. Tell me this doesn't mean what I think it means. He looked miserable. The deal the boss made with Kozlov? It destabilized the smaller operation. They got desperate, needed money fast. So when Victoria came to them with a girl to sell. He stopped, unable to finish. Dante's business deal created the circumstances that led to my sale. Isla's voice was hollow. His organization, his actions, even if he didn't know it, he's part of the chain that put me in that alley. He didn't know, Luca said urgently. I swear, boss had no idea until months after he saved you. When he found out, When did he find out? Luca's silence was answer enough. How long, Luca? How long has he known that his business indirectly caused what happened to me? 6 months, Luca admitted. He's been trying to figure out how to tell you. He didn't want to. Isla was already moving, grabbing her coat, her keys, her phone. The office walls felt too close, the air too thin. She needed to get out, needed to think, needed to. She drove to the penthouse on autopilot. Dante was in the living room when she arrived, clearly expecting her. Luca must have called ahead. Isla. Is it true? Her voice was ice. Your Kozlov deal. Did it create the situation that led to my sale? Dante's face was carefully blank, which told her everything. Indirectly. Very indirectly. The chain of causation. Answer the question. Yes or no? A pause that lasted forever. Then, yes. The word detonated like a grenade. Isla felt something inside her crack. Not break, but fracture in a way that might never fully heal. When did you know? 6 months ago. My investigators were tracking the trafficking network, trying to identify. 6 months. She laughed, bitter and broken. We've been together for 2 years, Dante. Living together. Planning together. Making love and promises and futures. And for 6 months, you knew that you were part of the reason I ended up in that alley, and you said nothing. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Her voice rose, 2 years of controlled rage finally finding a target. Explain to me how this is different from what they did. They lied to me, manipulated me, used me. And you, her voice cracked. You saved me out of guilt. Trained me out of guilt. Loved me out of guilt. I wasn't your partner, I was your penance. That's not true. Dante moved toward her, but she backed away, and pain flickered across his face. I saved you because I couldn't save Elena. I trained you because you deserved to be strong. I love you because you're extraordinary. The guilt about the deal? It's separate. It doesn't change. It changes everything. Isla's hands fisted at her sides. Every moment between us is tainted now. Every touch, every promise, every declaration. Was any of it real, or was it all just you trying to balance some cosmic scale? All of it was real. His voice was rough, desperate in a way she'd never heard. Isla, I love you. That has nothing to do with deals or guilt or... You love the idea of saving me. Of fixing what you broke. But you don't love me, Dante. You can't. Because if you did, you would have told me the truth the moment you discovered it. Tears streamed down her face. You would have trusted me to handle it instead of deciding for me. Again. Just like everyone else in my life. I was trying to protect you. I don't need protection. The words ripped out of her. I needed honesty. I needed a partner who respected me enough to give me the truth, no matter how ugly. But instead, you made me a victim again. Someone to be managed and handled and lied to for her own good. Isla, please. Was saving me ever about me? Or was it always about you? About your guilt, your redemption, your need to not be the man who failed his sister. She moved toward the door. I can't do this. I can't be here. I can't look at you and not wonder what else you've been hiding. Don't leave. Dante's voice cracked. Please. We can work through this. I'll tell you everything, complete transparency from now on. Just don't. I'm not the girl in the alley anymore, Dante. You made sure of that. I'm someone who doesn't accept lies, even from people I love. She opened the door. Especially from people I love. Where are you going? Away from you. Away from this. I need to think without your presence in my head, your voice in my ear, your guilt wrapping around everything we've built. She left before he could respond, before she could see the devastation on his face and let it weaken her resolve. In her car, speeding toward her own apartment, the one she'd kept separate, the one that was entirely hers, Isla finally let herself break. Sobs tore through her, 2 years of carefully constructed control shattering like glass. She'd trusted him. Loved him. Built a life around the belief that he was different. That he saw her as an equal, not a victim. But he'd lied. For 6 months, he'd looked her in the eye and kept a secret that fundamentally altered their entire relationship. Just like Julian. Just like Victoria. Just like everyone who'd ever claimed to care about her. The person she'd become, strong, dangerous, unbreakable, had been forged in his fire. But maybe that person wasn't hers at all. Maybe she was just Dante's creation, shaped by his guilt into something that could assuage his conscience. Isla parked in her building's garage and sat in the darkness, her phone buzzing with ignored calls from Dante. She'd spent 2 years preparing to destroy the people who'd betrayed her. She'd never considered that the person who saved her might betray her too. 6 months of silence. Isla threw herself into work with manic intensity. Russo Enterprises expanded aggressively, new acquisitions, hostile takeovers, strategic partnerships that put her name on everyone's lips. She became known for ruthlessness, for closing deals that left competitors bleeding. The business world whispered that Isabella Russo had ice in her veins. They had no idea how much it hurt to be cold. Dante didn't contact her. Not after the first week of unanswered calls and ignored messages. He gave her space, which somehow made it worse. She wanted him to fight for her, to storm into her office and refuse to accept her withdrawal. But he respected her boundary. Even now, even broken, he gave her what she asked for. She hated him for it. And loved him. And couldn't separate the two anymore. The revenge plan continued without him. Isla had all the tools now, the resources, the knowledge, the connections. She didn't need Dante Valerian to destroy her enemies. She started with Julian's firm. Using her position on the board, Isla systematically exposed the creative accounting that had inflated cross-financial success. Anonymous tips to the SEC. Strategic leaks to financial journalists. Within 3 months, Julian was under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and insider trading. His investors fled. His reputation crumbled. His firm hemorrhaged money. Isla watched from her office as cross-financial collapsed, and felt nothing. The satisfaction she'd anticipated never came. Just hollow victory and the persistent ache of Dante's absence. Next came Celeste's boutique. Isla poached every major client, offering them exclusive deals through shell companies. She bought out Celeste's suppliers, cornering the market on the luxury goods that made the boutique special. Within 2 months, Celeste was drowning in debt, her pristine showroom empty of customers. Still, Isla felt nothing. Victoria was last. The stepmother who'd orchestrated everything, who'd looked at a grieving girl and seen dollar signs. Isla used her real estate connections to buy the building that housed Victoria's penthouse, then tripled the rent. She systematically destroyed Victoria's social standing, whispered rumors about gambling debts, past scandals, the convenient death of her stepdaughter. The high society that had embraced Victoria when she had money now shunned her as radioactive. And Isla felt nothing. She sat in her corner office on a Tuesday evening, looking at the reports documenting their total destruction, and realized the truth: revenge without meaning was just cruelty. And cruelty without purpose was empty. She'd won. They'd lost everything, just as she'd lost everything 2 years ago. But winning felt like losing. Her phone buzzed. Not Dante, he hadn't called in months. Luca. Ms. Russo? We have a situation. It's about the boss. Isla's heart clenched. What kind of situation? Rival family. The Kozlov alliance fell apart after you and the boss separated. They saw weakness, decided to make a move. There's going to be a hit. Tonight. At the club. Why are you telling me this? Because he won't fight back. Not really. He's been. Luca's voice cracked. He's been different since you left. Reckless. Taking meetings without backup. Making decisions that could get him killed. It's like he doesn't care anymore whether he lives or dies. Ice flooded Isla's veins. Where is he now? The club. Waiting. He knows they're coming, and he's just sitting there. Isla was already moving, grabbing her coat, her keys. Tell him I'm coming. Tell him to stay alive. He won't listen to me. He hasn't listened to anyone in months. Then I'll make him listen. The drive to Dante's club took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Isla's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Dante wounded. Dante dying. Dante gone, erased from the world by violence, taking with him every unsaid word between them. She'd been so focused on her anger, her betrayal, her pain that she'd forgotten. He was hurting too. And unlike her, Dante didn't have healthy ways to process pain. He had violence and self-destruction and the belief that he didn't deserve good things. The club's parking lot was too quiet. Ominous. Isla grabbed the gun from her glove compartment. Dante had taught her to always be armed, and entered through the back entrance. The main floor was empty. No security, no staff. Just silence and the smell of expensive liquor. Dante sat at the bar, a glass of whiskey in front of him, looking like a king waiting for execution. He didn't turn when she entered, but his shoulders tensed. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. Luca called. Said you're planning to die tonight. Luca talks too much. Isla crossed to him, fury and fear warring in her chest. Are you insane? You know there's a hit, and you're just sitting here. Why not? Dante took a sip of whiskey, his movements slow, deliberate. My empire's falling apart. My organization questions my leadership. The woman I love won't speak to me. What exactly am I fighting for? Your life, you idiot. My life. He laughed, bitter and broken. You mean the life where I destroy everything I touch? Where I save people only to realize I'm part of the reason they needed saving? That life. Isla wanted to hit him. Wanted to shake him until he understood. So you're giving up? After everything, after teaching me to be strong, to fight, to never let them win, you're just surrendering. I'm tired, Isla. He finally turned to face her, and the devastation in his eyes stole her breath. He looked older, hollowed out, like grief had carved away everything vital. I'm tired of being the monster. Tired of hurting people I care about. Tired of living in a world where love is just another form of violence. That's not. I ruined your life. His voice cracked. My business deal, my territory grab, my endless need for more power, it created the circumstances that put you in that alley. And then I saved you and told myself I was a hero. That I'd fixed it. But I didn't fix anything. I just made you dependent on me, shaped you into what I needed you to be, and called it love. Stop it. It's true. You said it yourself. I made you a victim again. I was angry. The words burst out of her. I was hurt and betrayed, and I said things to hurt you back. But that doesn't mean I wanted this. You broken and suicidal, throwing away everything we built because you think you're irredeemable. Dante stared at her, something flickering in his dead eyes. You left. For 6 months, you've been gone. Radio silence. I thought. You thought I didn't care? That I'd moved on. Isla moved closer, her hands fisting in his shirt. I've been destroying them, Dante. Victoria, Julian, Celeste, I've taken everything from them. Systematically. Brutally. The way we planned. And you know what I learned. What? That revenge without you feels empty. That winning without someone to share it with is just lonely. Tears streamed down her face. I was angry. I am angry. You lied to me, kept secrets, made choices for me instead of with me. That was wrong, and it hurt, and I needed space to process it. I know. But I never stopped loving you. Her voice broke. Not for 1 second. Even furious, even hurt, even convinced I should hate you, I loved you. And the thought of you dying, of leaving this world believing you're nothing but a monster who destroys everything. She pressed her forehead to his chest. That would destroy me. Dante's arms came around her, crushing her against him with desperate intensity. I'm sorry. God, Isla, I'm so sorry. I should have told you the moment I found out. I should have trusted you to handle the truth. I should have. You should have fought for us. She pulled back, meeting his eyes. These 6 months, you should have shown up. Refused to let me push you away. Made me talk to you instead of just accepting my silence. I thought respecting your boundary was. Boundaries are important. But so is fighting for people you love. There's a difference between respect and giving up. She cupped his face, forcing him to hold her gaze. I needed space. But I also needed to know you weren't going anywhere. That even angry, even hurt, we were still us. Are we? His voice was small, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard. Still us. Do you think Isla should forgive Dante, or are some betrayals too big to overcome? Share your thoughts. Isla considered the question seriously. Was this forgivable? The lies, the secrets, the paternalistic decision-making? 6 months ago, she would have said no. Would have walked away clean, built a life without him. But 6 months had taught her something crucial. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about two broken people choosing each other, again and again, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. We're us, she said finally. But different. We need rules. Complete honesty, even when it's ugly. Equal partnership, not you deciding what I can handle. And therapy, both of us, together and separate. Because we're both damaged, and damage requires healing, not just vengeance. I can do that. Dante's hands trembled where they held her. I'll do anything. Just don't leave again. Don't let me self-destruct because I don't know how to live without you. Then you need to promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll fight. For us, for yourself, for the future we could have. Promise that when things get hard, and they will, you won't give up. Won't decide you're too broken to deserve love. Won't sit in empty clubs waiting for bullets because you think the world's better without you. She kissed him, fierce and claiming. Promise me, Dante. I promise. His voice was rough. I'll fight. For us. For everything. The front door exploded inward. Men poured through, armed, tactical, moving with military precision. The hit team. Isla's heart hammered, but Dante was already moving, pulling her behind the bar as bullets shredded the space where they'd been standing. I thought you gave up. Isla shouted over the gunfire. That was before you showed up. Dante returned fire with a gun she hadn't seen him draw, his movements sharp and controlled. The suicidal man from moments ago had vanished, replaced by the apex predator she'd fallen in love with. Now I have a reason to live. They fought together, Dante's lethal precision combined with Isla's tactical training, and it was brutal and terrifying and somehow perfect. Two people who understood violence defending what they'd built from the ashes. When the shooting stopped, 6 bodies littered the club floor. Dante and Isla stood back to back, breathing hard, covered in plaster dust and spent brass casings. That was, Isla started. Insane, Dante finished. But effective. She turned to face him, and despite everything, the violence, the near death, the months of separation, she started laughing. Real laughter, the kind that came from surviving impossible things with someone who understood you completely. Dante stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Then he started laughing too. They collapsed against each other, laughing and crying and holding on like letting go meant drowning. We're completely insane, Isla said when she could breathe again. Absolutely. Dante kissed her temple, her cheek, her lips. But we're insane together. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. Sirens wailed in the distance. They had minutes, maybe less, before law enforcement arrived. Dante made quick calls, his lawyers, his cleaners, the people who handled these situations. What now? Isla asked as they prepared to leave through the back exit. Now we finish what you started. Together. Dante took her hand. Victoria, Julian, Celeste, they're broken, but they're not gone. You want them to truly understand what they did? We give them one final gift. What gift? His smile was dark, dangerous, and absolutely beautiful. The truth. We show them exactly who survived their betrayal. We let them see the queen they created. And then we walk away, knowing they'll spend the rest of their miserable lives looking over their shoulders, wondering when we'll strike again. Isla considered this. It was perfect. Not death. Death was mercy. But eternal fear? Knowing they'd created their own destroyer? That was justice. Together, she agreed. But after? When it's done. After, we build something new. Something that's ours, not born from trauma or revenge. Dante pulled her close. We choose each other. Every day. Not because we're broken, but because we're whole enough to handle broken. That's the worst love declaration I've ever heard. It's honest. I know. She kissed him. That's why I love it. They left the club hand in hand, stepping over bodies and broken glass, two people who'd faced death and chosen life. Chosen each other. Chosen tomorrow. The invitation was exquisite, cream cardstock with gold embossing, delivered by personal courier to 3 specific addresses in the city. You are cordially invited to the Grand Meridian Ballroom for an evening celebrating new beginnings. Black tie required. RSVP regrets only. Victoria received hers at the studio apartment she could barely afford, a far cry from the penthouse she'd lost when Isla's strategic real estate moves had priced her out. She studied the invitation with suspicion, but the promise of high society, the world she'd been exiled from, was too tempting to resist. Julian got his at the motel where he'd been living since his firm collapsed and Celeste kicked him out. He recognized the venue, the same place where Cross Financial had thrown its last gala before everything fell apart. Curiosity and desperate hope for networking opportunities made him accept. Celeste opened hers in the back office of her shuttered boutique, surrounded by unpaid bills and liquidation notices. She had nothing left to lose. Maybe this mysterious event would offer an opportunity, a lifeline, a way back to relevance. None of them realized they were walking into a reckoning. The Grand Meridian Ballroom glittered like a jewel box, crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, an orchestra playing soft classical music. But unlike typical galas, this one had no crowds. No society elite networking and posturing. Just 3 guests, arriving separately, each escorted to the same table in the center of the empty room. Victoria arrived first, her confusion evident. What is this? Where is everyone? Julian came next, his once pristine appearance now rumpled, desperate. Victoria? What are you doing here? I could ask you the same question. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. Did you set this up? Some kind of sick joke after everything. I didn't set up anything. I thought this was a legitimate. Celeste appeared, and the fragile piece shattered. Of course you're both here. Perfect. The 2 people who've ruined my life, together again. We ruined your life. Julian's laugh was bitter. You're the one who kicked me out, who? Because you bankrupted us. Your illegal deals, your fraud. Which I did for you. For us. To maintain the lifestyle you demanded. They devolved into vicious arguing, 3 people bound by betrayal and mutual destruction, each blaming the others for their downfall. The orchestra played on, indifferent to their pain. Then the music stopped. The lights dimmed except for a single spotlight on the ballroom's grand staircase. A woman descended, wrapped in a gown of midnight blue that shimmered like starlight. Her blonde hair, darker now, styled with sophisticated elegance, caught the light. Her face, subtly altered but achingly familiar, held an expression of serene power. She looked like a ghost. Like a queen. Like vengeance wearing couture. Victoria saw her first. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on marble. No. No, that's impossible. You're dead. We made sure you were. Dead. Isla's voice carried across the empty ballroom, rich and controlled. Is that what you told yourselves? That the girl you sold was dead, so you could sleep at night? Julian had gone white. Isla? But how the body, the reports? There was never a body. Isla reached the bottom of the stairs, and behind her, Dante appeared, devastating in a black tuxedo, his presence a dark promise. Just a girl left to die in an alley. But someone found her. Someone saved her. Someone taught her that victims could become queens if they wanted it badly enough. Celeste's voice was a whisper. What do you want? Want. Isla laughed, the sound cutting. I wanted my family to love me. I wanted my fiancé to actually mean his vows. I wanted to believe that people were fundamentally good. You took all that. So I took everything from you in return. Understanding dawned across their faces. Victoria's real estate collapse, Julian's firm's destruction, Celeste's boutique failure. Not bad luck. Not market forces. Calculated revenge. It was you, Victoria breathed. Isabella Russo. That was you. You destroyed us. I didn't have to destroy you. Isla's smile was sharp. You destroyed yourselves. I just accelerated the process. Exposed the fraud you were already committing, Julian. Revealed the debts you were already drowning in, Victoria. Poached the clients who were already unhappy with you, Celeste. I simply held up a mirror and made the world see what you really were. You had no right, Julian started. No right. Dante's voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. He moved to Isla's side, his hand settling on her waist with possessive certainty. You sold her. Beat her. Left her to die. And you want to discuss rights. Julian's bravado crumbled. He'd heard the name Dante Valerian, knew the reputation. Finding out that the girl he discarded had the Mafia King's protection made his legs weak. We didn't mean, it wasn't supposed to be permanent. They said they'd just scare you, make you sign over. Make me sign over my inheritance before killing me? Isla's voice was ice. That was the plan, wasn't it, Victoria? Scare me into signing everything over, then eliminate the problem. Victoria said nothing, but her silence was confirmation enough. Isla pulled a folder from seemingly nowhere, dramatic, rehearsed, perfect. She set it on their table with a sound that echoed through the empty room. Your complete histories. Every crime, every fraud, every dirty secret. I've spent 2 years compiling this. 1 copy goes to the FBI. 1 to the IRS. 1 to the press. You can't. I already did. As of 20 minutes ago, federal warrants have been issued for your arrests. Wire fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy to commit murder. Isla's smile was beautiful and terrible. You're going to prison. All of you. For a very long time. The color drained from their faces. Celeste started crying. Julian looked ready to bolt. Victoria just stared, her carefully constructed world crumbling for the final time. But here's the gift, Isla continued, her voice softening just slightly. I'm giving you this moment. This one moment of understanding, before the law takes you. I wanted you to see me. Not dead, not broken, not the naive girl you thought you could erase. I wanted you to see what you created. She gestured to herself, to Dante, to the empire she'd built from ashes and rage. I'm Isla Monroe. The girl you sold. The inheritance you stole. The future you tried to destroy. And I survived. Not despite what you did to me, but because of it. You made me strong in ways I never would have been. You taught me that trust is earned, that family is chosen, that power belongs to those ruthless enough to take it. Isla moved closer to their table, and all three shrank back. She'd become something terrifying, not through violence, but through absolute, unwavering control. So thank you, she said quietly. For betraying me. For selling me. For teaching me that I could only truly rely on myself. You gave me the greatest gift possible. You freed me from the illusion that people like you deserved my kindness. Isla, please, Victoria's voice cracked, and for the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. We are family. We made mistakes, but we can fix this. If you just... We're not family. The words were final, absolute. Family doesn't sell each other. Family doesn't destroy each other for profit. You're strangers who happen to share my father's house. Nothing more. Federal agents entered through the ballroom doors. Dante's connections ensured perfect timing. They moved toward the table with purposeful efficiency. Isla watched as Victoria, Julian, and Celeste were read their rights, watched as handcuffs clicked around wrists that had once been adorned with stolen jewelry and blood money. Victoria looked back one last time as they led her away. You've become a monster. Just like him. She jerked her head toward Dante. Is that really better than what we were? Isla considered the question seriously. Was she a monster? She destroyed lives, ruined families, orchestrated suffering with calculated precision. But she'd also built an empire on merit, employed hundreds of people fairly, donated millions to charities that helped trafficking victims. She'd used her power to help others like her, broken people who needed second chances. I'm not a monster, Isla said finally. I'm a queen. There's a difference. Monsters destroy for pleasure. Queens do what's necessary to protect their kingdom. And you three. She smiled. You were never my kingdom. You were just obstacles I removed. The agents escorted them out, and the ballroom fell silent once more. Isla stood in the center of the empty space, wrapped in designer armor and hard-won strength, and felt free. Not happy. Happiness felt too simple for this moment. But free. Dante's arms came around her from behind, solid and grounding. How do you feel? Like I can finally breathe. She leaned back against him. Is that normal? Shouldn't I feel triumphant? Satisfied? Revenge rarely satisfies the way we think it will. It closes a chapter, but it doesn't write a new one. He turned her to face him. The question is, what do we write next? Isla looked up at the man who'd saved her, loved her, challenged her, and ultimately respected her enough to let her choose her own path. They'd been through hell together, literal and metaphorical. They'd broken each other and rebuilt stronger. I want to help people like me, she said. Victims who need to become survivors. People who've been discarded and need to remember they're valuable. I want to build something good from all this darkness. A foundation? An empire. Her smile was fierce. A real one. Built on helping people find their power, not taking it from them. I want to use everything you taught me, the strategy, the ruthlessness, the discipline, and channel it into making sure no one else ends up in that alley feeling worthless. Dante's expression softened with pride. That's ambitious. I learned from an ambitious man. I love you. The words were simple, unadorned with poetry or grand declarations. Just truth. Not who you were, not who I tried to make you. I love who you became all by yourself. I didn't become this by myself. Isla pressed her palm to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. I became this because someone saw potential in a dying girl and refused to let her stay buried. Because someone loved me enough to tell me hard truths. Because someone stood beside me while I burned down my old life and built a new one. We're a team. Partners, she corrected. Equal partners. In business and in life and in whatever chaos comes next. I can work with that. She kissed him, there in the empty ballroom where they'd first danced, where she'd first felt like someone worth saving. The orchestra, paid to stay regardless of what happened, struck up a waltz, and Dante pulled her into his arms. They danced as they'd done 2 years ago, but everything was different now. She wasn't a broken girl learning to stand. He wasn't a guilt-ridden savior seeking redemption. They were two people who'd chosen each other repeatedly, despite every reason not to. What about your empire? Isla asked as they swayed. The organization, the territory, all of it? I'm transitioning to legitimate business. It'll take time, but... He shrugged. You make me want to be better. Not perfect, I'll never be that. But better. Someone worthy of standing beside a queen. You already are. The music swelled around them, and Isla realized this was the moment. Not when she destroyed her enemies, not when she'd built her business empire. This moment, choosing love over revenge, partnership over isolation, tomorrow over yesterday. This was when she truly became a queen. Ready to face the world? Dante asked as the song ended. Isla thought about the foundation she'd build, the lives she'd change, the future spreading out before them like an unwritten story. It would be complicated, challenging, sometimes painful, but it would be hers. Ready, she said, taking his hand. For everything. They walked out of the Grand Meridian together, leaving behind the ghosts of who they'd been and stepping into who they were becoming. Behind them, the ballroom stood empty except for echoes of music and the lingering scent of justice served. Isla Monroe, once a victim, then a survivor, now a queen, had taken back her life. And she'd done it on her own terms. The city lights glittered ahead, full of possibility and promise. Somewhere out there were people who needed saving, who needed to know that broken didn't mean destroyed. Isla would find them. Help them. Show them that from the deepest darkness, the brightest lights could emerge. She was no longer the girl who'd trusted blindly. She was the woman who'd learned to trust wisely. And that made all the difference. What did you think of Isla's journey from victim to queen? Would you have made the same choices? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories of transformation and justice. 1 year later, the Monroe Foundation's grand opening drew crowds from across the city. A state-of-the-art facility dedicated to helping trafficking victims, abuse survivors, and people rebuilding their lives after betrayal. Isla stood at the podium, no longer hiding behind the Isabella Russo persona. She was herself now, Isla Monroe, survivor and advocate, using her real name and real story to help others. I died in an alley 2 years ago, she told the assembled press and donors. The girl I was, trusting, naive, soft, she didn't survive what was done to her. But something new rose from those ashes. Someone stronger. And I realized that strength isn't just for revenge or personal gain. It's for lifting others who are where I was. For showing them that survival is possible. That transformation is real. That queens aren't born, they're forged in fire. The crowd applauded. Dante watched from the side, his pride evident, but letting her have this moment in the spotlight alone. This was her empire. Her legacy. Her choice. After the ceremony, they returned to the penthouse they now shared, not his or hers, but theirs. A home built on equal partnership and hard-won trust. Proud of you, Dante said, pulling her close. Proud of us. Isla corrected. We did this together. No. He tilted her chin up. You did this. I just made sure no one stood in your way. She smiled, thinking about how far they'd come. How much they'd both changed. How love had transformed from a weapon into a sanctuary. Victoria, Julian, and Celeste were serving their sentences, 15 years, 12 years, and 10 years respectively. Isla rarely thought about them anymore. They were footnotes in her story, not the authors of it. She was the author now. And she was just getting started. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Somewhere, a girl was suffering what Isla had suffered. Feeling what Isla had felt. Believing she was worthless, disposable, erased. But tomorrow, that girl might find the Monroe Foundation. And everything would change. Just as it had for Isla. Just as it would for countless others. Because broken things could be rebuilt. Victims could become queens. And from the deepest darkness, the most brilliant lights emerged. Isla Monroe had learned that truth the hard way. Now she'd spend the rest of her life teaching it to others. And that was the greatest revenge of all. Not destruction, but transformation. Not becoming the monster. But becoming the light that guided others out of their own darkness. She was no longer the betrayed girl. She was the queen who'd risen. And her reign had only just begun.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.